Clay from the Hills Maniacs, and today I answer the question in the title of this video: are there inconsistencies in Halloween? So, if you haven't checked out the other inconsistencies videos I did, go check those out. They're really fun to film, and I have a lot of other ones planned. So if these are something you're into, please let us know, and I'll keep doing these. But basically, how it works is I watch a movie for the first time or rewatch it depending on what movie it is, and I go through and I write down different things I find that either didn't make sense or that like were never explained in the movie, and things that, like, if you're gonna bring it up, why wouldn't you follow up with it? You know, things that really didn't make sense. So these little flaws or inconsistencies, as I call them, in different movies. And I've done the first 3 Jurassic Park movies. I did Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street. So go check those out if those sound interesting to you. Now for this one, like I said, I'm doing the first Halloween movie. I will do things that, like, some of my points will be points of movies that, or points found in this movie that are explained in other movies later on, but for the purposes of this video, because it wasn't explained in the original movie, it will be a question that I had on the list, and you'll see what I mean by that later on when I get to it. But for this one, I really only found 4 points, or 4 things that really didn't make sense, which is kind of low compared to the other ones of these that I did, but it's because the last one has a few, like, sub points to it, which I'll get to when we get there. But the first point I want to bring up, and actually before I do that, I do have to say, this isn't to, like, discredit the movie or say that it's a bad movie or anything, because Halloween is one of my favorite horror movies, like, ever. So I do like the movie, and I didn't do this to say that it's a bad movie or anything. This is just for fun. And anything that you know I found isn't meant to be a bad thing. It's just something that I do for fun. So the first point I want to bring up is, at the beginning of the movie, we see all the patients from Smith's Grove Sanitarium have escaped, and they never really follow up with it on how they escaped, at least not in this movie. I'm sure it had something to do with Michael Myers, but they never really mention it, and even if they did, I missed it, but as far as I'm aware, they never really mentioned it, and I know it's not really a big point for everyone else, but this is how Michael escaped, and is able to go back to Haddonfield, and, you know, all this stuff happens on Halloween. So he was one of the patients that escaped, and so that's a big question. Like, how did they escape? Did somebody let them out? Did somebody, or did, like, Michael kill the people and then they all escaped? Did somebody else do something and they all escaped, and Michael just took this opportunity to leave? Like, how did this work? Why did this work? You know, things like that. And so they never really bring it up. I mean, they do mention it from time to time throughout the movie that, you know, he escaped the sanitarium and all this other stuff, and why he escaped, but they never say how they were managed to get out of the sanitarium, you know, everyone else. So that's kind of a main point, and it's right at the beginning of the movie, and that is, like, the main point, that Michael was able to escape, so you figured you'd follow up on that, but they didn't. And on that note, because at this same point, Michael Myers ends up attacking Dr. Loomis and the nurse that he's with, I forget what her name is, and he steals her car and drives off to go back to Haddonfield. And Dr. Loomis, at one point in the movie, I forget if it's there or if it's later on, but at one point in the movie, Dr. Loomis even brings up the point, he says, how did Michael learn to drive? And did somebody there teach him? And that's my question too. How did Michael learn to drive? Because we see at the very beginning, when he murders his sister on Halloween as a kid, he ends up getting put in an insane asylum, which is Smith's Grove Sanitarium, and he he's there for most of his life up until he escapes. And so that's, I think, 20, maybe 20 plus years at least that he was there. So he would have been a grown adult when he escaped. The question is though, like, because I doubt somebody's sitting there like, all right, go get your driver's license now. You're 16, go get your driver's license so you can drive. I doubt they'd let him especially out. So how did he learn to drive? Is it just something he adopted? Like did he just watch somebody do it and then figured it out? Did somebody purposely teach him in the hopes that he would escape? Did Dr. Loomis do it? Was this whole thing planned by Dr. Loomis so that he could show that Michael Myers was a killer? But that's a whole nother theory video to film. But the main question there was, how did he learn to drive? Because that's another important thing, and we'll see it a couple times throughout the series where he'll steal somebody's car and drive, and he'll stalk Laurie, or Laurie Strode, played by Jamie Lee Curtis, or he'll stalk somebody else, or or use it to go places, whatever. So how did he learn to drive? I wish they really would have followed up with that, because Dr. Loomis even mentions it in the movie, and that's just something I feel like they should have at least hinted at some point, even in one of the follow-up movies, because I'm pretty sure they never followed up with it. But I haven't seen all of them, so I don't know if they have at some point, but at least for this movie they never followed up with it. Question 3 I have is, how does Michael know who Laurie is? Did he just go back to Haddonfield and just find a random group of friends that he wanted to go after, and once he killed all the other ones, then he decided to go after Laurie? Did he target her from the start? And even still, if it was somebody from his past, that he knew he needed to get revenge on for something, she would have been older now. So how would he know what she looked like? Or where she was? How did he know she was still in Haddonfield? Did he hear people talking about her at some point? Did he hear, how does he know Laurie? I know later on they end up figuring stuff out about it, and I'll get to that with my last point. But for right now, it's just confusing, because if you watch this movie, and I get it was made without knowing whether or not there'd be a sequel, but still the first question I would ask is, why is he targeting her? Or how does he know who she is? Because the fourth point I have written down is, why does he target Laurie? Which I guess could kind of go with that, but question 3 was, how does he know who Laurie is? This one is, why does he target her after he does know, even if he does know who she is? And we find out in Halloween 2, the original sequel to Halloween, that they are siblings. And it seemed the only person that knew that was the nurse that worked with Michael at Smith's Grove. Because she tells Dr. Loomis in the car on the way to the hospital where Laurie is to help Laurie. She tells Dr. Loomis that the Strode girl is Michael's sister, and the reason her name is different was because when Michael was a kid and he killed his oldest sister, Laurie was still a baby, or not born yet, or something like that, and so she was adopted by the Strode family, who lives also in Haddonfield conveniently, and lived like down the street from the Myers house, where she grew up. But Lori never knew she was related to Michael. And so Dr. Loomis acts surprised that uh, that Michael was her brother, but did he actually know? And on that note, because I said, why does Michael target Lori? Well, does Michael know that Lori is his sister? And if so, how did he find out? Did Loomis tell him? Did the nurse tell him? Uh, did somebody else tell him? And if not, then it goes back to the main question, I guess I should say, for question 4. Why does he target Lori? Because if he doesn't know that they're related, that means he just went back to Haddonfield, found a random group of friends, and decided to kill all of them. And then because Lori escaped him in the first one, he goes after her again later on down the line. And he won't stop until he kills her because she escaped him the first time. Which, I mean, plot-wise, that's not a very exciting storyline. I personally liked the siblings storyline, but we don't get that until part 2. So if you've never seen part 2, you won't understand why Michael is doing what he's doing. And I still, to this day, after seeing a lot of these Halloween movies, including the newest one, where apparently it's not even canon that they're siblings. In Halloween 2018, they say that it was just a myth that people made up, that they were siblings. And so if it's not even canon that they're siblings, then we go back to the question, why does he target Lori? Like, he's not just going to go to Haddonfield, the place he grew up, find a random group of teenagers and kill them. I mean, he does that in every movie. But it seems to be like Lori is his main focus when he goes there. In the first one, he could kill anybody in that town. He could kill everybody in the town if he wanted to, but he doesn't. He goes after Lori and her closest friends to try to get to Lori. And when she escapes him, he ends up tracking her down later on, in other movies. And even in part 2, she's at the hospital, and he tracks her down to the hospital. And then again, later on down the line, she's in an insane asylum because they think she's going crazy. And he tracks her down again and kills her until H2O, and then she's in California, and he goes to California to track her down. And at this point, we know that they were siblings, and that's why Michael's tracking her down. But then Halloween 2018 comes out, and they're not related. So this whole thing, why is Michael going back after her 40 years later in 2018? Is it because she, was able to escape in the first one? And that's a whole nother thing. But I guess the 4 main questions I have is, how did all the patients escape Smith's Grove at the beginning of the movie? How did Michael learn to drive? How does Michael know who Lori is, and why does he target Lori? So that's all I got for this one. Like I said, it's a lot less than what I'm used to getting for these movies, because overall, Halloween wasn't a bad movie. I mean, these things could have been followed up on, but overall, I think Michael Myers was just one of the best horror movie villains. Well, not according to the kills. That's a past video. Check that one out too if you haven't already, to see who the actual best horror movie villain is in my opinion based on kills. But he's always been that iconic, for me at least, the iconic horror movie villain. Halloween was like the first horror movie I actually got into, and when I first watched it, I didn't really pay attention to stuff. I was just like, oh, this dude's cool, he's got this iconic mask, and he just walks around and he can't be killed, and all this other stuff. And and that's just that was cool, for a kid watching this for the first time. But now that I'm older and I rewatch it, I start finding these, and this is why I do these videos in case other people have these questions too. I find all these things that like they're minor sometimes, but it's also like I would have liked to see that follow up one. And again, I get that like you can't have a 4 hour long movie, and to cover all this stuff. So you're limited to time, especially when filming and time and money and stuff. But overall, I really enjoy Halloween. It is a great movie. I'm not gonna say the entire franchise is great, but it has the first two and Halloween 2018. I think were my three favorites. But overall, I really enjoyed it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Definitely check out, like I said, the other Inconsistencies videos I did, and check out what else we did here this week for Halloween. And because it is Halloween today, happy Halloween, everybody. I'll see you in the next one.